Hey everybody, we're back with another episode of Swimrun 101. This time, all you need to know about Swimrun gear. Let's dive right in. Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 176 of the show. Welcome to the latest drop in our ad hoc Swimrun 101 series. As Chipper mentioned, this show is all about Swimrun gear. We will break down the essential pieces of the Swimrun kit and give you our latest thinking on what you need to have a great Swimrun experience, both in training and racing. And while we literally can talk about this stuff forever, we will do our best, no promises, to keep it to our best wisdom nuggets as we go through basically head to toe.
Top to bottom,
inside out, whatever, on the Swimrun kit. And now you might ask, why are we doing this? Is this stuff going to be super obvious? Probably some of it's going to be super obvious, but we get these questions all the time,
this,
Chipper.
By far the most common question for new people getting into the sport is, what insert piece of gear, what pull buoy should I get? Do I need a pull buoy? Do I need paddles? What wetsuit? Shoes? We get it all the time. And we put out a lot of these Swimrun episodes, but somehow we haven't done one all-encompassing of gear.
We have a gear guide on our website, which you should definitely check out.
Yep.
But I think even as we talk to people and we get insight from super experienced, way more experienced swimrunners than us, like our own opinions keep evolving. So this is going to be sort of, the latest document of where we are at in terms of Swimrun kits.
Absolutely. And the Swimrun, since we started the show 3 years ago, the kit has changed pretty considerably. We're super excited to announce that this episode is sponsored by Dry Robe. We wanted to introduce you to the brand new Dry Robe Light. The Dry Robe Light is the lightest, cutting-edge innovation from the makers of the original outdoor changing robe. Spoiler alert, it's awesome. And it keeps you dry, obviously, because that's what the name says.
And it looks cool.
It does look cool.
You've been wearing this thing to the pool, and dare I say, you're the best-looking dry-robed person
I'm getting catcalled on the way to the pool on the regular basis, and also a lot of jealous looks.
There's people flopping off the diving boards. Like, they see you, they just, lose their focus and belly flop and stuff.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, you know what makes the dry robe so cool? It's made using Reprieve fabric from 37 recycled water bottles.
Wow.
It's also super packable compared to its more substantial original dry robe. It's thick. So what else makes it cool? Obviously, you look cool.
Yeah. It's a great product. This company's been really good to us. We highly recommend this product. They also have compression bags. They have the original dry robe. They have changing mats. They have seat covers. They pretty much thought of everything you might need for
making
after
a post-wet experience.
Surfers are using this stuff. Swimrunners are sponsors of the Attila Swim World Championship. So they're a really cool brand doing really cool things. And head over to dryrope.com. The link is on the show notes and on our website. And check out the Dry Rope Light.
Go further with Dry Rope Light. So let's jump right in at the top. So we're not going to count the swim cap, but you do get a swim cap with your race registration.
Yeah,
but
use it.
Use it. Maybe we will note, if you are prone to being cold, a lot of heat escapes from your out top of your head. So if that's an issue for you, you might want to consider maybe like a thermal cap. I know Chris has used that previously. I've used it in some colder open water ones. So if you get particularly cold and that's an area of concern for you, maybe you'll get like a little neoprene cap for underneath your race or your training cap. But goggles.
Yeah, this one is one where
don't need to overthink it.
You don't need to overthink it. If you've done any open water swimming, you probably have a pair of goggles that has worked for you. This is the type of thing to me that feels to be like, hey, you find something that works, you stick with it.
Yep.
It's the same thing for Swimrun. You don't need some Swimrun specific goggle. Maybe some lens that helps you see better, like the Dirkson's recommended clear lens, because you can see the contrast on cloudy days. But just whatever works, really.
Yeah, whatever works for you in your training works. And then, like Chris mentioned, if you want to get really into the nuance, there's different tints of goggles on the lens. If you think there's going to be fog or full sun and you need a more sun coverage or whatever,
You're just into polarized stuff.
We got polarized. Got them. All swim runs are open water, so if there is a goggle that you use that is a little bit more gives you better peripheral vision or better for sighting, obviously maybe that might be the one to go with.
Yeah, but even folks like Jonas Kolting, he just wears the old school Swede ones that basically kind of like go inside your eyeball kind of thing.
Yeah, which seemed like not very comfortable, but hey, I'm not going to argue with Mr.
Whatever
Kolting.
tickles your fancy in terms of goggles.
Absolutely. Now for potentially a very controversial or another top question, pull buoy.
Yeah.
One, do I need one?
Yes.
Is the question one. We say absolutely a pull buoy will help your situation in a swim run.
And this is why. You're swimming with shoes, you're doing a lot of things in the water that create drag. A pull buoy helps mitigate the drag by lifting your butt up, getting you better alignment in the water so you can swim faster. Put that on with paddles, which we'll talk about in a minute. That's what's been shown in the history of the sport to be the most efficient way to move forward propulsion in the swim run is paddles and a pull buoy.
Because you don't kick.
You don't kick, right? Because kicking actually, as Shane taught us, actually makes you go backwards if you're kicking with shoes on, apparently. So use as large a pull buoy as you can handle. Again, the least amount of work you need to do with your legs to keep them in the right optimal position, the better. Some of it is preference. There's tons of different types of pull buoys out there, the Mondo style, that are some are more comfortable than others. Just depends what you're looking for. We both use the Ark Keel Plus, which is one of the largest pull buoys that you can get. And
it's right up against the legal limit that Attila has. But yes, there's pontoon style plastic ones. There's your old school, just kind of your regular swim pull buoy, and then there's now what we have referred to as the Mondo Euro pull buoys.
Yeah,
the Ark Keel. There's a Keel S. There's the Keel regular size, and then the Plus, which is like Chris mentioned, the one that we're using. And yeah, using these in the pool. You might feel a little bit large and unwieldy, but in open water and in a race or a training situation, you will definitely notice that. Now,
yeah, and we're definitely spoiled. So we have pull buoys that are a little bit smaller, still bigger than your average pull buoy to give us more buoyancy that'll simulate the way we'll swim in a swim run. But we don't use our Keel Pluses because that's almost too much when you don't have any gear on in a pool.
Yep, absolutely. So if you're new and you're wondering, should I get a pull buoy? You can totally start with the one that you have in your bag. Is it worth the investment to get one? I would probably say it's probably one of the top 3 things I would recommend that will make your swim run experience better is a swim run specific pull buoy. Now, we kind of bundled these two together. Paddles. Again, Chris, do I need paddles for swim run? I've seen people use them. I don't normally swim with paddles. What should I do with paddles?
Yeah, again, you don't need to use paddles. You don't need to use a pull buoy. We just recommend these things because, hey, everyone who's excelling in the sport, who seems to be having the most fun, they're all using paddles and they're all using pull buoys. There's no need to necessarily go against the grain there.
Yep.
I think where you want to kind of figure out what works for you is size of paddles. We have a whole episode dedicated to this, so make sure you check our gear reviews. The show's called Paddles for Swimrun. We have John Stevens come on to basically talk about why the right paddle size is important. So you might see some of these Instagram photos or YouTube videos with the huge giant like trash can lid paddles.
Yeah.
Don't start there.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Definitely start small. If you're new to paddles, you totally can use the paddles that you have been using in your swim training and within the pool. You don't need to go out and buy the latest and greatest. Those will totally work. Now, if you want to go crazy in the deep end, there is carbon fiber paddles now. There's a new sort of paddles with fin style that is becoming more popular. So if you want to chase that, have at it. Go for it.
But your $9 Synergy, they're probably $12 now with inflation, but your $12 Synergy plastic paddles will work just fine.
Absolutely. On that.
Yeah, so let's move on to sort of like probably the most important piece of swimrun kit, and this is the wetsuit. Now, if you've heard this show over the last 3 years, we always would put this disclaimer. It's like, hey, check to see what you have in your closet. Maybe you have an old tri-suit. You can cut the arms and sleeves off. And we've gotten comments back. We're like, hey, buddy, like no one's actually going to do that. Yeah. That sounds like a terrible idea. And we were just doing that in the sense of trying to lower the barrier to entry as much as possible. But I think like, where we're at with it now, we're going to update our disclaimer to this, which is like, hey, there are so many really good entry-level wetsuits at around the $200 range that if you want to have a positive swimrun experience, especially if it's your first one and you want to train well for one, do yourself a favor and get the swimrun wetsuit. I mean, it's almost a drop in the bucket. Plus, you can borrow one from someone maybe for free, from us if you're a small tall or a medium tall. You can rent one at most races now.
Odyssey has rentals with Ark. So Ark's one of the leaders in the Swimrun wetsuit game. So
we have
you can
Chipper's genius of the Swimrun swap meet.
Yeah.
So there's places where you can find a wetsuit. I mean, the Low Tide Boys gear loaner program is thriving.
It is. It's at capacity.
For lack of a better word. But yeah, so if you heard it before and we were saying, oh yeah, just use what you have in the house and start that way, I think we're updating that to being like, hey, this is actually a really important part of having a positive race experience. So invest in entry level wetsuits. There's a bunch of them. Chipper, I know you have your favorite. So do I.
Yep.
Why don't you tell us what you think is a good entry?
Yeah. So I mean, this is the question that we definitely see a lot on Facebook and especially in the Odyssey groups, and the questions that we get emailed. If you're going to spend any dollars beyond your race registration, a wetsuit will make your experience that much better. Your run is going to be more free and engaging. You're not going to get as tired. There's pockets for storage of things, and it will keep you warm during some of the colder swims. But I think on the entry level piece, if we're talking around the $200 mark, the Ark Corp is a really strong. You can't go wrong with that suit. We've been using the Orca entry level suit that they have, the veneer. That one's very strong as well. And then the Synergy one also comes in below $200, and that's a pretty solid one as well. So there's 3 options all around or less than $200 that you can very easily get your hands on Amazon or on the internets.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of resources to try to borrow one, rent one, all that stuff. So we would highly recommend that. But yeah, wetsuit, this is a non-negotiable. Anyone who's like, oh, I'm going to sign up for this race and not wear a wetsuit, it's like, come on, buddy. Actually, wetsuits are mandatory for a lot of these races, so you want to look at that. But yeah, it's an important part of the kit, and definitely, sky's the limit on where you can go with it. Yeah. But entry level suits, there's a bunch of them. They're great. I mean, I've been using the Ark Corp, the new Ark Corp. I'd wear that for the World Championship if I had to. Yeah, be fine.
Yeah, it would be great. And then obviously there's entry level all the way to high end on the wetsuits. If you want to get into the most premium materials or the newest technology, that's available for you. We have links to all that good stuff in the show notes if you want to do a deep dive on that. Yeah. Or actually, what would really tickle us is just send us an email. We love talking about this stuff anyway and recommending wetsuits.
We'll keep answering. Right. Yeah, we'll totally happy to keep answering these questions. But next, and now it's like cue, like the sexy Swimrun undergarments. Now we have a whole why I don't know. Yeah. We have a whole gear talk all about Swimrun undergarments, but there's a couple key pieces that I think is important to talk about that we get asked a lot about. Kangaroo tops. Chipper and I, we're both huge fans of these for storage purposes, a little bit of warmth. They make them just sort of like a sleeveless thing. They also have bra versions with storage on top. Those are super, super important.
Yeah, it's a sleeveless sort of compression top with, like Chris said, pockets on the top and bottom, and that's where you can put your paddles, your nutrition, any bottles or flask or whatever. But yeah, most Swimrun wetsuits don't have tons of pockets around them, so where are you going to carry our stuff? One of these tops is really going to eliminate that concern for you. So that's what goes on your tops. Now your bottoms.
There's a couple schools of thought.
There's a couple lines of thinking along this. Now the Low Tide Boys, Chris pioneered this.
I feel like I started this little cult kind of thing, the Sunday movement, where now it's. I'm sure I wasn't the first, but I've definitely been promoting it, and I've converted a bunch of people. And that's just, you don't wear
all natural.
Yeah. You go birthday Sunday suit.
And with the Swimrun specific wetsuit, the bottoms is kind of like a compression, almost like a swim skin type material. So there's no concerns with chafing on that front, but you also very easily could wear some whatever your normal swim Speedo is, or your compression your briefs. Yeah, anything like that will totally work. And then I think we also, that's the most of the undergarment pieces.
Yeah, that's it. I think if you're prone to chafing, which we'll talk about later, sometimes the undergarments can help or hurt. So it's just something to kind of always be mindful of, hot spots where you might potentially chafe.
Yep.
But yeah, that kind of leads us into socks, which is actually a question. We stopped getting it. We used to get this question a ton, and I think people started to kind of realize that it's like, all right,
they caught on. The socks aren't that big of a concern. I think what a lot of concern around the socks is, oh my gosh, I'm running constantly in wet shoes from swimming. You're going to get blisters.
Well,
with the right socks, it's a non-issue.
Never gotten a blister.
No, knock on wood on that one.
Yeah. So we recommend sort of the high polyester content or nylon content that are thin, that have either low water absorption and or retention, which is really important. So stay away from thick, like woolies kind of thing.
Yeah, you don't need your woolly winter hiking socks are not going to be a good fit on a swim run.
That said, Ark Sports has some wool, sort of race socks that
merino
are,
wool, yeah,
that are merino wool that are more of like your smart wool style. Now, in terms of length, total personal preference. Chipper and I, we both rock sort of the knee highs.
Yep.
Probably gives you a little bit of insulation, but it's more for protecting from nicks and scrapes from transitions, foliage, wildlife.
All sorts of stuff that you're going to encounter on a swim run.
Yeah.
Now, we might just touch on this. I think socks, we've also seen maybe in older photos, calf floaties, neoprene calf shin floaties. This is like a piece of neoprene that you slide up and it kind of goes over your shin. We're not really recommending those as something to really try out.
You know what's funny about that?
School.
That was like all the rage like 3 years ago.
It was. Yeah, so this is why we're updating it. So with the oncoming of the more Euro style pull buoys, the shin floaties is not necessary if you have a swim run style pull buoy there.
Now, if you're always tripping on stuff and banging your shins on everything, then shin floaties are good because they'll actually give you a little bit of protection. And also, most of them are made of straight neoprene, so if your lower legs get super cold, might be something to think about just from a warmth perspective. But don't think that, I don't need a pull buoy because I got floaties on my shins and my shoes and all that stuff. A pull buoy is just going to be way better for all that.
Yeah, you could, if you don't believe us, test it out yourself, then report back.
Yeah, sure.
Let us know how it goes.
Yeah.
Now, again, another very popular, what shoes do I wear for swim runs?
Yeah, so this is one where I think our blanket statement still applies, which is, hey, see what trail shoes you have in your stable that might fit the bill, and use those to start swim running in. And fit the bill would be ones that have a decent grip, some lugs on the bottom. 99% of swim runs are on trail, that they drain well and don't get waterlogged. So it's one thing if they drain water, but if you're running in them and they're just like quick, the whole time. So there's a bucket test you can do. We have whole episodes on this stuff. Just go to our Gear Talk page. But yeah, that being said, there's a bunch of shoes out there that really make the experience work really well and that appear to be always on sale for some reason.
Yeah. So Chris is referring to the Adidas Terex Speed Ultras.
Speed Ultras. Nice.
Also known as the 240s, which is how many grams they weigh for the men's sizes. But yeah, those are the ones that we've been using. But I always ran trails in Hokas, and I've raced many swim runs in Hokas. The Speed Goats, the Zanals. I know Chris has worn Solomon shoes. These Adidas ones are sort of the cool kid at the moment within swim run. But we've literally seen it all. If you're into the barefoot running game, Vivo Barefoot makes a swim run specific shoe, which is really awesome and like, a wish list type of shoe there. So check that out if you're into the barefoot minimalist running there.
Yeah, and I think this is a place where it's actually pretty fun because, for example, this Adidas shoe, this Adidas Terex shoe, I'm convinced Adidas has no clue.
I don't think
this is such
there's
a great shoe.
Yeah.
Like they just are totally oblivious. Well, we're going to try to change their view on that. I don't know how, but to keep it evergreen, make sure you check our latest Gear Talks because as new shoes come out and manufacturers send them to us to test, I mean, we're all about seeing where this goes because I think there's still a lot of room for optimization there.
Yeah, absolutely. But moral of the story on the shoes: just go with what you know on the trail shoe piece, and that's a really good place to start, and it'll probably get you. Probably get you there.
Yep, for sure. Now, finally, this is sort of like the miscellaneous potpourri section where there's a bunch of little bits with swim run that are important and they need to be factored into in your sort of kit. And the first one is the tether.
Yes, and this is a teams only consideration. So swim run is a team sport traditionally, but now there's been openings of solo divisions. So if you're a solo swim runner, all the same gear sort of applies to you. The only real issue on the solo piece is most races will provide you what's called a rest tube. It's an individual like flotation device that you can carry around in a case of emergency. But the tether, which we have a complete episode and video series dedicated to, connects the two Swimrun partners with a 3-meter stretchy kind of bungee cord, and it was originally intended for safety purposes for this race, but it is since evolved to be part of the sport. But we're all in on the tether, and it actually is a great fun way to race and really experience swim run.
Yeah, for sure. It allows for we've talked about the tether a lot, as Chipper mentioned. We have an episode on the tether when we're talking about team tactics, when we're talking about heads up racing. The tether can really play a part there, and just a really important piece to try. And we highly recommend it, especially if at least for the swims, but try it on the run as well.
Yeah.
You might notice a big difference.
Very easy to make as well. We have videos on that.
Yep. Now, in terms of hydration, most of these swim runs are cupless, so you want to make sure you have a collapsible cup, maybe a soft flask, so you can make sure that you're never in a situation where you wish you had some fluid but don't have access to it.
Yep.
So, and this is going to be course specific. So some races will have really long run sections, and you just want to make a note of where the energy aid stations will be so you can plan accordingly. So, for example, for the World Champs, we had a plan when we were going to fill our soft flasks, because we knew we had long runs ahead, things like that, and when we were just going to use a collapsible cup. So just, little things to think about there in terms of your tactics.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are things that fit perfectly in that kangaroo storage style top we were talking about earlier. Now, if you're a couple of long hair outlaws like Chris and I, you need to make sure you got yourself some strong hair ties as well for any long hair people. You're going to be running, swimming, swim cap on, swim cap off, goggles on, goggles off. You want to make sure you got your hair situation sorted.
Yep. I've been thinking I need to ask someone to do like battle braids or something.
Should we get like some proper things going in?
Like,
I definitely have
go to Cancun or something.
We'll just go to Mexico. We'll get some
cornrows.
Some cornrows put in before the big race.
That'll be fantastic.
So hair ties, or I know some people they're bringing maybe prescription glasses. I have seen people bring those like really those hats that you could basically and they just throw a hat in because they like running with a hat, and it gets cold and then it's kind of is cooling on the run. So whatever will make your swim run experience a little bit better. If you can fit it in your kangaroo top, you can totally bring it with you.
Absolutely. The only rule is whatever you bring in, you got to take out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and also this is an area that Chris and I are kind of been diving into a little bit more, but some sort of waterproof storage for whatever you might be taking. So if it's us doing a swim run practice, that's the car keys that have, all the new cars now have the very fancy remote, and we had a
close call.
We had a kerfuffle one time with that, so lesson learned. But if you take the salt tabs or any sort of noon or hydration or whatever type of hydration, some waterproof storage situation to protect that. Maybe a Ziploc will work for you, or you can get something a little bit more sturdy if you like.
Yeah, well, with that's essentially all the pieces of the Swimrun kit that came to mind for us. The things that sort of are Swimrun kit adjacent would be making sure you have good lube, so you don't chafe, sort of understand what you're going to need in terms of sunscreen, applying it the night before, so that, on race morning, most people forget, and Swimrun, while it's cold business, you can get pretty burnt out there.
And is there any gear that people might be thinking of that we advise against? I think one thing that comes right to mind is fins, because technically you can fins are not illegal in swim runs, and some people have thought that this is, I'm not great at swimming, so if I get fins, I can kick and I'll go really fast and that'll help me. Well, we're here to tell you that that's probably not going to work out as well as you think. So skip the fins idea.
Yeah, kudos to you if you're going to bring fins and put them in a little baggie or something while you run and stuff, and sitting down on the edges of water, put them on and go. If you're kicking that entire time, your legs are probably going to be pretty blasted.
Toasted,
I mean, one of the great things about Swimrun is you can kind of essentially rest your legs while you use your upper body, and then just kind of do the old switcheroo when you're running again kind of thing.
Yeah, the old switcheroo.
Yeah. Now I would say like we've seen a lot of it where people don't wear pull buoys or they have really small pull buoys. I think if you see someone at the World Championship and they have a tiny pull buoy, I'm not second guessing that. I'm like, hey, you obviously know what you're doing. There's so many ways to skin this cat, and one of the great things about Swimrun is that there's still all this room for your personal expression on what the perfect gear is. For example, I've been using the simple mount for a while, and Chipper was using the lasso mount, and just now he's kind of coming over to my side and trying my mount and seeing how that works for him. And and there's all these different ways that you can just play around with it and see what's there for. And that's one of the great things that the sport is so young. There are all these different ways to get your kit sorted out, and just because what we would definitely recommend, look at what everyone is doing, kind of iterate from there rather than being like, I'm going to go in this totally different direction. Like, hey,
the hard work's been done.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Yeah,
there's a reason why the kits look the way they look for 95% of the people there. So don't overthink it. Start there, and keep the questions coming. We're not releasing this episode so you don't ask us questions. We just thought, hey, might as well
consolidate
be of service
in one place, but. But yeah, I mean, as Chris mentioned, we have dedicated deep dives on almost every single topic within the gear. We have, so be sure to go to lowtidebuoys.com, check out the show notes for this episode, check all those links out. We have your everything you need to know about Swimrun gear guide with a video on our site as well. So head on over to our YouTube channel and check out all this stuff. We got all the things to make your swimrun experience as fun as possible, and for you to have such a great time out there. So that's it. We'll put a nice bow on that one, and then we'll see you out there.
Yep.
Over and out. That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swimrun.
Check out our website, lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z, for swimrun resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run.
And then a swim.
Then another run.
Then another swim.
Then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
too. Of course, yes.